Hello, I'm Jongbin Cha, a rising senior at Hangul Academy of Foreign Studies. So one thing before we start our presentation, please prepare a piece of paper, a pencil, and crayons if you're ambitious, because we are going to host our very own Hope to the Future World Habitat Day Children's Drawing Contest. So every year, UN Habitat hosts a drawing contest for children, asking them to submit their own drawings on various topics related to sustainable cities. And don't worry, we all know that our drawing skills have stopped improving since kindergarten, so we'll all be eligible. So while listening to our presentation, draw what your ideal city looks like, addressing the problems that we talk about. Reward for the best drawing is lots of praise and admiration from Team 2, so I'm expecting very aggressive competition. So with that said, let us begin our presentation.
Hello everybody, we're Team 2 and I am Seon Choi from Korea International School, Jeju. From now on, we are going to explain about UN Habitat and Sustainable Development Goal 11. Can you see the picture on the left? Could anybody tell what those dots are? Those are all houses in Cambodia when the tropical storm Son swirled through the country in 2018. The water level rose up to 11.5 meters in some places, and more than 200 houses were submerged under the water. However, their houses were able to be restored totally after 2 years. Even more, the housing became more sustainable and resilient so that they were able to prevent another flood or natural disaster in the future. How are they possible? Throughout the presentation, I will firstly do a brief introduction of a UN Habitat and Sustainable Development Goal 11. Then we are going to explain about different topics that UN Habitat covers through their projects. Furthermore, we found out that the topics they cover can be divided into events related to people sustainability and environment sustainability for the future. So we will pick a topic from each division and explain the actual example with its solution. As you may expect, the previous example I explained is the result of the help from UN Habitat. To explain more, UN Habitat, also known as United Nations Human Settlement Program, has the ultimate goal of making a better quality of life for all in an urbanizing world. Therefore, it is closely related to Sustainable Development Goal 11, which talks about sustainable cities and communities. Specifically, if you focus on each target under Goal 11, we can notice that those targets and UN Habitat are heading toward a similar goal. For example, to explain a few targets that are relevant to the program held in Cambodia, 11-1, safe and affordable housing, 11-3, inclusive and sustainable urbanization, and 11-5, reducing the adverse effects of natural disasters. So far, it sounded like UN Habitat will just rebuild the houses or buildings, but it does more than that. The word habitat might only mean the physical space you live in, but UN Habitat is trying to consider every component that might affect people's lives both physically or psychologically. The plan might be as big as a city or community size, or it might be small as one person's mindset. These are some of the topics introduced in UN Habitat's website, so you can find out programs and plans that were held in the past to solve the problem in a specific community or city. As we found out that UN Habitat encompasses various topics and reached multiple solutions, we chose to research more on a specific topic and past projects. Then we were able to find out those are all related to sustainability. So we also analyzed each topic's relationship with sustainability. Therefore, our topic is UN Habitat's approach to different problems of sustainability.
So we'll be addressing two topics in our presentation. The first one is UN Habitat and Slum Upgrading, and the second topic is UN Habitat and Climate Change, and I'll be talking about the first topic. So this is where Gordon Parks met Flavio. Gordon Parks, a photographer working for the Life magazine, arrived in Brazil in 1961 to document the hardships of the impoverished. And he met a 12-year-old boy named Flavio in the Catacumba favela, a slum on the outskirts of Rio de Janeiro. Meeting Flavio made Gordon Parks say that poverty is the most savage of all human afflictions. Flavio was taking care of 8 younger siblings, working from day to night, and suffering from life-threatening asthma. Flavio's condition was heartbreaking beyond imagination. But the more dismal thing than Flavio himself is the fact that there are millions more Flavios in the world today. 400,000 in Khayelitsha, Cape Town in South Africa, 700,000 in Kibra, Nairobi in Kenya, 1 million in Dharavi in Mumbai, India, and 2,400,000 in Orangi Town in Karachi in Pakistan. 60% of the global population will live in cities by 2030, and 2/3 of the world's population will be living in cities by 2050. Such high rates of urbanization in the context of stagnating economies, poor planning and governance have led to proliferation of slums or informal settlements in major cities. That's how we're left with Khayelitsha, Kibra, Dharavi, and Orangi Town. Sustainable Development Goal 11's Target 11.1 is, by 2030, ensure access for all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services and upgrade slums. So in our presentation about UN Habitat, we want to talk about the challenges that people in slums face and the solutions to this problem. Before we go any further, we have to ask, what exactly is a slum? UN Habitat defines a slum household as lacking one or more of the following indicators. Number 1, a durable housing structure. A durable housing structure refers to a house that is built on a non-hazardous location and has a permanent and adequate structure able to protect its inhabitants from the extremes of climatic conditions such as rain, heat, cold, and humidity. And number 2 is access to clean water. If the household members use a facility that is protected from outside contamination, in particular fecal matters contamination, they are considered to have access to improved drinking water source. Some examples are piped water into dwelling, plot or yard, public tap, standpipes, protected spring, etc. And number 3 is access to improved sanitation, which means access to a facility with an excreta disposal system that hygienically separates human waste from human contact, such as flush toilets or latrines connected to a sewer, septic tank, or pit, etc. Number 4 is sufficient living space, where not more than 3 people share the same habitable room. And number 5 is secure tenure, where members of the household should have a legal status against arbitrary unlawful evictions, harassments, as well as any other threats. But slum residents are faced with challenges of lacking access to the above and more. Due to limited sanitation, the slum in Kibra, Nairobi, had open sewer lines empty effluent in front of people's houses. It had only 1,000 toilets to serve the entire slum population of hundreds of thousands of people, and thus open defecation is still common, which exposes people to higher risks of disease and become targets for crime, especially for women. Poor or non-existing clean water and sanitation facilities are linked to high malaria and diarrhea rates. In Liberia, malaria and diarrhea are the leading causes of child mortality. Living conditions in slums are a risk to the inhabitants' health, which has dramatic effects in the slum dwellers' life expectancy. Poorest 20% in cities struggle to reach 55 years of age, while the richest 40% go well beyond 70 years. Slums are prone to disease outbreaks like HIV, cholera, Ebola, and COVID because of the lack of sanitation, clean water, and sufficient living spaces, and also data on risk groups and general health. Small living spaces also pose a great challenge. In Nairobi, slums cover just 6% of the total residential land area, and yet they house 60% of the city's population. A typical slum room is 9 square meters, in which an average of 4 people live. And permanent constructions represent only 28% of all slum structures. Houses in slums are mostly made of transitory corrugated iron sheets, sacks, wood, and are located on or near toxic waste, steep slopes, or dangerously in the way of transport lines. Most people living in slums and informal settlements do not have security of tenure or land rights, and such lack of access to land and precarious security of tenure prevent people living in slums from accessing credit and reduce their motivation to improve their homes and neighborhoods. Other than lack of sanitation, secure tenure, durable housing, access to clean water, and sufficient living space, some residents are further challenged by lack of education, job opportunities, safe mobility, and lack of public spaces. According to UNESCO, lowest literacy rates are observed in sub-Saharan Africa and in Southern and Western Asia, coincidentally the regions with the highest prevalence of slums, showing their disadvantage in regards to education. With upgrading slums, we can work across all the problems I just talked about. By upgrading slums, we can tackle SDG number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 17, which is a total of 13 out of 17 SDGs. Cities are where people live, so logically, improving cities could be the key to solving many aspects of human problems. So next, we'll look at how we can solve the challenges faced by slums.
Hey, this is Iljo Yu from Daewon International Middle School. According to UN, leaving no one and no space behind is the key point of the solutions for slum upgrading, and this means it is important to give help to the slum dwellers to enjoy the same quality of life just as the ones in the developed countries does. So we should provide them with diverse opportunities to advance their residential area so that they can live in a sustainable and resilient place. We can divide the solutions into several branches such as the following. First, sanitation. Sanitation was one of the most important factors of resilience in the past, but has been even more necessary since the outbreak of the pandemic. So an abundant supply of hygienic goods such as soap, hand sanitizer, and masks will be vital. We are the medicine. Our behavior is like when we wash our hands many times a day, said Mishira Mamabet, a slum dweller in Kenya. As she said, developing awareness between residents about ways to stay clean will be a big help. Improving water quality of the slums or installing a water purification system and having an excreta disposal system will also help the residents to live in a more pleasant place. Second, safety. We should consider the location of a slum when developing it because places that are too remote or that have toxic materials nearby can be very dangerous to the residents. So constructing a sustainable house by using materials other than iron sheets or sacks so that it can fully manage rain, snow, or hot and cold weather by itself will be crucial. Third, strong institution. UN Habitat can help governments to legislate a law that prohibits any action related to expelling slum inhabitants, helping certain countries where slums are located to repair or strengthen their institutions to prevent frequently occurring crimes will be meaningful as well. Fourth, medical services. Medical service is being more and more requisite since the spread of COVID-19. We should offer enough medical supplies and teach the slum dwellers how to cope in emergency situations. Fifth, enough workplaces. This is related to eradicating poverty in slums. It's not only essential for the slum residents to receive enough supplies, but to also gain enough income by having a stable workplace to eradicate poverty and ensure their economic independence. Next, education. UN Habitat should enable the slum dwellers to receive fundamental education so that they can be empowered by building school for them in the surrounding areas. Lastly, spacious living spaces. We should help them to live in a comfortable place where they won't be squashed in a crowded place, which can also prevent a sudden spread of the virus that risks the inhabitants. All these solutions will be enabled UN Habitat to upgrade the slums. And one thing common among these solutions is that the UN Habitat works with a local communities based on a partnership. Having partnership with the local slum dwellers can lead to promoting them to volunteer when making housing structure and can gather different communities around the slum to come together integratively. Since it is the inhabitants who know exactly what they need for the environment, we can also effectively develop the slums by hearing their voices. Also, this can further form an ownership to the slum dwellers, which will eventually let them to take care and maintain their homes as a sustainable place to live in. One of the most pivotal requirements while building a resilient city is maintaining the distinctive culture of the residents. Because what they ultimately want from us is a place where they can enjoy their original lifestyles. So understanding in advance the region's culture would be very important. Based on these required conditions when developing the slums, let's take a look at a project that UN Habitat has been working on. I would like to introduce the Participatory Slum Upgrading Project, also known as the PSUP. The PSUP reforms living conditions of slum dwellers all over the world. It focuses on the challenges in slums, especially the prevention of COVID-19 pandemic these days. It was founded in 2008, and approximately 190 cities located in Sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean, and the Pacific area are engaged in the project. Then what would be the UN Habitat's accomplishments achieved via the PSUP? 1. Over 800,000 slum dwellers with improved tenure security. 2. 50 national development frameworks. 3. More than 1,200 local and national governments, or NGOs and CBOs, also known as the community-based organizations, are engaged in the implementation process. 4. About 268,000 women and youth directly engaged through community-managed funds. 5. Ultimately, over 500,000 people with improved living conditions. In a nutshell, these achievements of UN Habitat had a substantial impact on the residents' life. They received financial support from their government to solve the structural problems of the slums, and they can speak out their voices to the world, begin to gain their own incomes from the workplaces, and especially the women and children dwellers are empowered. Now, it is important to remember that you can also make this spectacular effort just like UN Habitat. So how can we be involved in these campaigns and activities related to the slum upgrading? One example could be an activity named World Habitat Day's Children's Drawing Contest, where we show the future and the vision we dream of by drawing them into a picture. Some examples of the topics that were mentioned during the contest so far were a proposal from children. This is how I change my world to make it better. Our city and water, our cities, our life, and climate change. And lastly, the public transportation friendly to all in the cities. And other than that, we can also volunteer to do activities building home for the slum dwellers. That was it for the social approach, and we will dig on the environmental section from now on.
Hello, I'm Haewon Cho, junior in Chongsim International Academy. So before explaining a specific example of climate change, I'll briefly state the definition of climate change and city. Climate change is a long-term shift in global regional climate patterns, also referred to short-term abnormal climate. It has several major contributors, such as changes in sun's radiation, internal variabilities in art, human activities. Those changes influence humans, so that is why we should keep an eye on them. Then, the definition of the city can be divided into two categories. City is defined by its extent, and city is defined by its degree of urbanization. As climate change and environmental pollution become severe, the importance of SDG 11 and the role of UN Habitat is also increasing. How climate change affects cities? Rising global temperatures cause natural disasters, such as sea levels to rise, extreme weather events like floods, droughts, storms, and increases the spread of tropical disease. Also, it has costly impacts on cities' basic services, infrastructure, housing, human livelihoods, and health. Cities are a key contributor to climate change, as urban activities are major sources of greenhouse gas emissions. The latest data indicates that cities account for between 60 and 80% of energy consumption and generate more than 70% of all greenhouse gases emissions, with transport and buildings being among the largest contributors. So, these are reasons why urban planning is an urgent and integral part of fighting climate change.
Thank you, Helen. Hi, I'm Rachel Kim from Cranbrook School. I'm going to take over from here. I would like to talk about past UN Habitat agendas and prior multilateral agreements to facilitate your understanding regarding the UN Habitat's role in environmental aspects. First of all, as you may already have heard, the Paris Climate Agreement is a legally binding international treaty. It was adopted in 2015, and the major objectives of this agreement are to promote integrated efforts to expedite a reduction of carbon emissions and limit global warming well below 2, preferably 1.5 Celsius degree compared to pre-industrial levels. Similarly, many countries around the world reached consensus on the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction 2015 to 2030, which ambitiously aims to reduce disaster risk and losses in livelihoods by enhancing awareness, investing in resilience, and responding effectively to so-called Build Back Better. Also, the new urban agenda suggests three transformative commitments: 1, social inclusion and ending poverty; 2, sustainable and inclusive urban prosperity and opportunities for all; and 3, environmentally sustainable and resilient urban development. Yet, we would like you to mainly focus on the last goal, interlinking relationships between it and the UN Habitat's projects. Besides, I'm presenting the City Prosperity Initiative, CPI, a data analysis tool that UN Habitat uses for fundamental data collection before its urban planning. This global initiative enables city authorities, local and national stakeholders to identify potential areas in need of intervention for prosperity and efficacy. Now, we would like to introduce some instances of city resilience profiling programs designed, funded, and monitored by the UN Habitat. First and foremost, there was a year-long project in Cambodia. During the 2018 monsoon season, Tropical Storm Sontin hit Cambodia badly, causing havoc in Tibang Khmum district with heavy floods. The deluge affected 62,000 households in 5 provinces along the Mekong River, and most of the residents needed to evacuate immediately. Alarmed by the urgency of addressing the aftermath, the UN Habitat launched a project for the support for improving living environment and prevention capacity in Cambodia in cooperation with the Cambodia's government and fundings from the Japanese government. Needless to say, the intention of this project is to fulfill recovery and strengthen resilience of the flood-affected population and city in Cambodia, ensuring access to safe shelter to almost 10,000 people, along with disaster preparedness measures. UN Habitat forms climate resilience adapted in housing design and construction methods.
Fiji is an island country in Melanesia, part of Oceania in the South Pacific Ocean. Increasing impacts of climate change, growing urbanization, climbing population numbers are major challenges the country and its population are facing now. Also, in Fiji, 20% of the urban population lives in informal settlements in high-risk peri-urban areas. UN Habitat supports institutional strengthening at the city and community level for enhanced local climate response and resilience strengthening. At the end of the process, it is expected that the following steps, among others, will be undertaken to reduce vulnerability to the climate emergency and threats at the city level, including through conduct of citywide risk and vulnerability assessments in target areas, production of hazard maps and citywide climate change action plans in target areas. Lastly, strengthen awareness in climate risk reduction processes and capacity at the community level with particular emphasis on women, youth, older people, and other people in vulnerable situations, focusing on early warning systems, resilience training, gender-sensitive safety audits, environmental and ecosystem management, and, in particular, community-level resilience building infrastructure.
Another ongoing project of the UN Habitat has been taking place in Cancun, a state of Quintana Roo in Mexico. The project deals with all procedures regarding the constructions of the Equity Park, which is a linear park with a length of more than 16 kilometers, a total area of 89 hectares, and a capacity of 200,000 residents in Cancun. As an epitome of implementing the 2030 Agenda and SDGs together, it is an ultimate master plan. The primary objectives of this plan are to achieve transformative urban development and public space projects. Once, Oritz Jasso, head of the Strategic Projects Agency, commended publicly that the Equity Park is public, sustainable, dynamic, inclusive, accessible, and safe space that will integrate the community and improve its quality of life. Indeed, the impacts of the Equity Park are tremendous in terms of reversing the lack of public spaces and green areas, as well as reducing the conditions of urban segregation and social inequality in the city. In addition, the city parks possess bright prospects, curtailing greenhouse gases and embracing various life organisms on land. On Thursday, all of us attended a lecture given by Luis Angel Flores and Nayong Lee from the UN Habitat in Mexico. Incorporating their fascinating insights, we came up with some conclusions. As they commented, Since cities and regions are all different with respect to climate, geography, sociopolitical situations, and available resources, urban plans should be different as well. At the moment, the need for context-specific plans has been increasing. Although UN Habitat does not directly intervene in the architecture or construction process, it can always provide professional advice to local governments, municipalities, and NGOs when it comes to implementing the UN Habitat's plans in practice. Reminding governments to utilize suitable materials is a crucial role of the UN Habitat. Sometimes the governments do not consider top priorities for urban planning and blindlessly look for cheap materials or else waste their budget by insisting on the usage of expensive materials. These expensive and specious materials may make the housing seems like having more of quality on the surface, while in reality, those materials neither function as it was designed initially, nor are capable of further sustainable reforms. For example, in Cancun, as I mentioned before, the UN Habitat encourages the local governments and partner organizations to use natural resources that can be easily acquired near the region, such as woods and sand, instead of the steel. Cancun's high humidity will easily oxidize the steel, which obviously obscures the safety of buildings or residences. Therefore, it is not an optimal choice to use steel as a primary construction material. To sum up, UN Habitat plays wide-ranging roles, from suggesting building materials to tailoring its urban plans in consideration of the region's situation.
Overall, from the two topics about slum upgrading and climate change, we were able to find out that although the problems UN Habitat has been trying to solve have varied, the plans and programs UN Habitat offered were all interconnected to sustainability. For example, when they rebuild a city damaged by natural disaster, they try to prevent those accidents by building resilient cities and communities so it doesn't get that much impact the next time. Furthermore, using eco-friendly materials, UN Habitat showed their consideration about environment for the future. Also, as we have talked about with human rights in slum upgrading, UN Habitat is also having lots of programs to reduce inequalities and follow righteous path. Those efforts for sustainable development might not be visible to our eyes right now, but we all believe that those little efforts will give a big and positive payback in the future. Also, there are lots of things we can participate in, like Urban October or World Cities Day, but there's something more important. Trying from a small thing. We can observe how our community or city goes and take notes. As more and more people consider their habitat, those small interests in the community will make a great impact on our world in the future.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. And now that our presentation is over, it's time to share our drawings. So please take a picture of your drawing and upload it on the KakaoTalk open chat, and we'll try to pick the best one.
For those who are done with the drawing, please share your drawings on the group chat, and due to the time limit, I will just proceed. So for those who have questions, please raise your hand. Sorry, Mensakyo.
First of all, thank you for your neat and informative presentation. I think it gave me comprehensive insights about the cities and furthermore. And from the solutions for upgrading slums, you have mentioned various sustainable development goals that UN Habitat can tackle with. So it is certainly true that all feasible solutions are crucial, and I want to perceive the priorities of the UN Habitat further, and which solutions do you believe should be the fundamental to address the predicament? Yes, thank you.
If you're asking,
please go ahead.
If you're asking about solutions, I think Iljo presented this part. I think Iljo can go ahead.
I think every solutions impact each other and they are very connected integratively. So I bet there's no priority for the solutions, but maybe in my personal opinion, I think education is the most important one because it can enable people to pursue their dreams and learn fundamental things so that they can live more wisely. Thank you for your question also.
Thank you for your response. Then I want to ask you further if you think that this opportunity can be the chance to address the predicaments that UN Habitat tackles, because you mentioned that education will be crucial.
Sorry, but can you explain your question one more time?
So you told me that education will be foremost, and it opens the opportunity for feasible solutions. But I want to ask you further if you think that this program that we are taking now can be one of the solutions as well. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sure. Because this program is also one of those ways that we can be involved with UN Habitat, though it is definitely one of those campaigns or activities that we can participate. Thank you.
Can please go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you so much, guys, for having this very engaging presentation. So it has very touched me in a way, as really all SDGs have to be implied and implemented into all of the SDGs interconnected to each other. So I wasn't able to draw it, so let me apologize that I wasn't able to draw it, but I drew it in my head, so I'll explain it. My ideal society on climate change would be equity and ensuring all SDGs. For example, if there's climate change, the consequences are to all the SDGs. They're all interconnected. For example, human well-being. If temperatures grow, animals will be affected and we will have a food shortage. That impacts the human well-being. So, and as you mentioned here, no one should be left behind. I loved how you say that. That is the motto of the UN. And that also goes with the SDGs. None of the SDGs should be left behind, even if there's a solution. So, and also as you mentioned, yes, solutions have to be tailored for each and every zone. That is very crucial because we can't implement, for example, if we have a solution for China, we can't implement that for Ethiopia. They're different in population, land, territory, and in literally every single sector. So instead of asking a question, I just wanted to mention my ideal of a society.
Thank you so much for your idea. I love it.
Thank you.
I guess due to time limits, we have to. Are there any more people who are like on the verge of submitting their drawings? Like they just need like 20 more seconds, or if not, I think we'll end our contest with these two contestants, and I guess I'll give the award to Brianna. So, Brianna, could you unmute and explain the meaning of your drawing for like 17 seconds?
I just tried to like incorporate the city, like my ideal city always include nature, not only like wealthy civilizations. Sustainable city is my ideal city, I guess.
Thank you and congratulations for winning the contest. It was a fierce competition, but you made it, I guess. And Hina can wrap up our presentation.
Yeah, can you go to like the photo that I sent to you? So this is a model that I built, excuse me for my clumsy crafting skills, but it's based on what I believe to be a future green building. But this is just a concept of it, not an exact or accurate embodiment of the ideal city. So it emulates a tree structure. And I haven't decided what this model will be used for, like for public spaces or just residences like apartments. But I believe that solar panels or other renewable energy generators can be implemented on top of those white square thingies And like this, I believe the youth can pose several ideas that can be selected and applied to actual urban plans later on. Thank you.